Good evening all. So we have come back with a new video, and today with our famous introduction we should start. So welcome and have a great evening. So today we'll talk about a very interesting topic, which is about resolutions and family conflicts. How we can overcome these conflicts, why these conflicts happen within they are in a family, country, or a regional context. Why do we think these things, why do conflicts happen, and how we can solve them? So in order for us to understand conflicts are usually about two kinds of things. They are usually about either resources or they are about rules. So, and when we talk about resources, so sometimes some people so for example, money is one of the resource, water is another resource, food is another resource, and sometimes mobile phones is a resource. So if we look at children, while they want to play, let me say, a small game using a mobile phone, they might hit each other trying to get that phone because they think this is a resource and they enjoy having this resource and they would like to keep this resource for themselves. So what we do to help in this context, we try to build some rules that we say, you spend 15 minutes using this phone and you spend 15 minutes using the other phone. And in the country context, you can use the resources that exist within your means, within your countries, within your places. And in a family context, you think about income, so and salaries and money, and people say you can always use the money that you earn, you can't use the money that someone else is earning, and this sometimes lead to some conflicts. And so if a wife is supporting her husband for a very long time, sometimes she thinks this is not why we have been married, not to keep sponsoring your life, but just to help you from time to time. And in a family context, it can happen also in the same way. So resources and how people consume these resources is a major source of conflict. The rules. So some people think, for example, and now let us talk about rules. So sometimes, and it's a good within family context. So sometimes in an Islamic culture, some people think if you marry another wife is something that is fine. So in Islam you can marry 4 wives. So if someone said you can marry, and Islam allow you to marry 4 wives, so the law allows you to marry 4 wives, but your relationship with your first wife tells you that our rules does not include that you can marry someone else. And this is where actually some relationships deteriorate, because this person has broke these rules, and sometimes people don't have any way of solving this conflict. Sometimes there is problems associated with heritage. Some people think their brother, their sister has taken their share or their right from a particular heritage, and they are not allowed to they are not allowed to do that by their understanding of the family rules. So this is where someone has took more resources and broke the law. So you should always think, what are the resources that we are important for our lives, and what are the rules for managing them, and what are our rules of communication, and how we can always build a group of rules that can make our relationship much better and more understandable. And it's not only that, how we can actually develop feelings for these rules, and we understand that these rules were in place for a particular purpose. You don't have to be very formal, but you should always try to establish some rules within any relationship you think about, so in order for you to have a sustainable relationship. So we talked about resources and rules. Now, when conflicts happen, there are 3 scenarios. The first scenario is that the conflict is completely independent from the relationship. And by this means that someone who is financially independent and, for example, had a fight in the street, and the fight finished at that time and he come back home. So his wife did not see any bruises, did not see any difference in his look. So she started saying, okay, whatever happens outside, it does not belong to our relationship. So the relationship is completely independent from the conflict that happened outside. And within countries context, we think like the Syria conflict is what is the importance of that conflict to Argentina or a far country. Now the second scenario is about that solving the conflict results in a lower benefit than keeping it. And we can see this within, for example, someone that maybe insulted his wife, or he continues to insult his wife, and she feels angry about it. But she says, if I decided, for example, to solve this conflict, this might result in my divorce. So I would rather keep the conflict because it actually keeping the marriage is more beneficial for me than trying to change the behavior of my husband, even if it results in a number of conflicts for our lives. And this is another way for looking where the benefit for solving the conflict is much lower than the benefit of keeping the conflict. And we can see within the Israeli-Palestinian case where the Israelis are not interested in giving lands, or they are not interested in actually sharing the land, or they are not interested in having an independent state beside them. So they are always trying to keep the conflict rather than trying to solve it. And some people, and sometimes, and this is the second case, and the third case, where solving the conflict is much beneficial, much beneficial than keeping the conflict. And this is, we see this, for example, in the Qatar Saudi case. There is a lot of there is borders, there is security issues, there is economical contribution, there is this cohesion Gulf Cooperation Council, where people are close together. So it always looks like that solving the conflict is much more beneficial for all sides than keeping the conflict. And everybody's thinking about everyone is thinking why keeping the conflict is more beneficial than solving the conflict. And this is the situation where sometimes some people actually quickly solve conflicts because they think a conflict emerging is much worse than solving the conflict. And we can see this with someone like to insult someone else in the street and say, okay, no, we'll not take this to a fight, just forget him, and then tell him, okay, it's fine, it's my mistake, and just carry on. Or when two people are driving and the first one say, hey, why you are driving like this, and why and the other person shouted, you are like a cow, and so on. So then they say, okay, a conflict happened, sorry, that's my mistake, then they carry on with their lives. So it's always every person is always thinking about these three cases when solving a conflict or keeping a conflict, and everyone is thinking what is the resources and what are the rules. The more you have an understanding of the rules, the more you have the ability to communicate the rules, the more understanding you have about your resources, and the more understanding the people around you can grasp this information, the easier the conflict can be resolved, and the easier you can bring the viewpoints to a positive end, and the easier you can build a sustainable plan to bring people together, or to bring back the network together. In our modern times, materialism and money has affected relationships significantly. So a lot of people has always, when they see a social conflict emerging, they think about it from materialistic point of view. So they think actually gaining more income is much better than keeping a relationship. The value of having more money is more important than the value of having a happy family, and so on. So this is why it is our responsibility as a human beings to have a world with more cohesive society, whether it was a global society or whether it was local societies, a world where we have less conflicts. And this is really our focus, to try to make our relationships more valuable in a quantitative way, or in a measurable way, or in a way that can be felt, rather than just looking at relationships without understanding the severe attack that is materialism is putting on our society and on our culture. At the end of the day, not everything can be transferred to monetary value, but a good conversation can always be valued. A good joke can always be valued. A positive feeling towards others can always be valued, and a positive atmosphere can always be valued. And the more you communicate about this, the more you show a solidarity in case of death, a solidarity in case of emergency, can always be valued. Finding a friend in need is a friend indeed, is something that you should always value. And in many cases, these meanings sometimes have been lost, that people could not find their friends in a needy situation, and people has become more alienated than to be able to help each other. So it's always about young people, it's always about the next generation, to think about different ways of strengthening the links within the network, as well as strengthening themselves. So why I should think about this relationship as a strong relationship, how we can think about the rules, how should people behave. And a lot of people don't understand what are the rules within our friendship. And a lot of people say there is no rules, we just meet, we just hang out with each other, we enjoy some time, and that's it. So the rules that you should always be a positive human beings, and you should not bring your problems to the relationship. And this is the norm that has become happening in our current situation. No one is interested in hearing the problems of others, because everyone has enough problems in his hands, and he is not interested in trying to help someone else, because he is already navigating his way in life. He's already under significant he's already struggling with his life, he's already under significant pressure, so there is no need for another pressure from another person. And this is kind of a rule. So this is kind of a rule: don't bring your problems to others, because people already have too much to handle, or they already under significant pressure. Please don't bring this to ourselves. What happens is that sometimes people does not have that much pressure, and they are not willing to help someone who is struggling or who have a problem. And these people are actually making our society weaker. The people who can help but can't help, or they would say, what is in this relationship for me? And they think about it, what would this relationship bring for me in terms of monetary benefits? They are the ones who actually can't develop relationships to be quantified. And actually, it's always important for every human being within our society to show that these relationships are valuable. These relationships can always be seen as a positive way for managing through life. And yes, a good relationship can be something good. Not too many relationships, maybe too many relationships can be bad, or too many shallow relationships can be bad, but few good relationships can be valued. And you should really understand how you can progress within your relationships, how to choose your relationships, and how, if conflicts emerge, you understand what kind of rules you will come back to think about these conflicts, or what kind of solutions you would impose. And these are rules that have been set by the society. Some people think that they should help each other a lot. Some people think no, that we should not help each other a lot. And people differ in the way they look about their friends, their relationships with their friends, their relationships with their wives, their relationships with their community, their relationships with their relatives, their relationships within the family. And the more you understand the person, and the more these things become clear, the easier you are able to solve these conflicts. And it's always good to say, you are the kind of person who would like to have a shallow relationship, you are the kind of person who would like to have a deep relationship, and you are the kind of person who would like to have a relationship that does not include problems from the society. You are the kind of that does not include bringing your problems to our relationship, or you are the kind of person who would accept helping someone during a difficult situation. So the more clear you communicate this message, the more helpful it can for you to understand your relationships, to understand your network, and to understand the strength of your network and the quality of your network, and how you can, what you can do with such a network. That was my talk for today. I hope you enjoyed it. It is a little bit long, but I think it's quite important that we develop this understanding of our network and our relationships. And to that end, we would tell you salam.